Hello, everybody, and welcome back to this amazing day of the Women Who AI Summit. My name is Kelley, the founder and host of this third summit. And today in this session, I'm here with Olivia Ramos from DeepBlocks. Welcome, Olivia.
Thank you, Kelley, for having me.
Yeah, and thank you for joining us. I could not be more excited to have you on because I think that you are really probably somebody who can speak to the idea of not only being a female in the industry. I know you have a wealth of background and experience in the technology space and things like that, but you also have a really innovative product that is pretty niche, I think, when it comes to the space of AI. So I'm excited to have you share with us what it is that you do and to share a little bit about your knowledge and what that is. Before we jump in, I would just love to share a little bit about your background. I know you're the founder and CEO of DeepBlocks. You have a master's degree in architecture from Columbia University and real estate development from the University of Miami. Your achievements prior to DeepBlocks include designing big data navigation software for the Department of Defense, graduating from Singularity University's Global Solutions and Accelerator programs. So I'd love to start off just by asking you, you have that master's degree in architecture. How did you end up winding up doing big data navigation software?
That's a great question. So I did the master's in architecture. Once I graduated, or actually during the summer internships, I realized that the architect did not have all the power to decide what gets built. And so in that I became obsessed. That's been, I did 7 years of architecture school plus 4 years of high school architecture.
Oh.
And so I did a second master's in real estate development to really understand the business side, the decision-making side on what gets built and for whom. And then when I went into the real world, I realized that there were so many other pieces involved: the contractor, the banker, the broker. I don't know if I wasn't paying attention in school, it wasn't the focus, but I became really discouraged about all the different disciplines, the tools they were using. Nothing was connecting. It was really, there was a lot of friction, and a lot of times there was a lack of understanding of one another, and it hurt the end product. So I left the industry altogether and applied to the program at DARPA for big data navigation, which was a topic that was discussed at Columbia at the time. And I thought that I would never come back.
That's interesting. So really it was something about your interest, right? You had this inquiry as you dug deeper into that real estate side. And so that's kind of how that wove and led you to, that role. And so from there, right, like how did you go from there to now becoming the founder and CEO of DeepBlocks?
So at DARPA, I designed a big data navigation VR and haptic controller to look at tens of thousands of data points at once. I took that project to Singularity University, where I thought I would develop it further. But I met my original kind of idea co-founder, Bernard Leong there, who was very passionate about lowering the cost of housing. And my contribution, I thought, to him was, let me explain how it really works in the industry of construction and development so you can understand how it's hopeless. Like nothing, we're not going to be able to do anything. And when I explained it to him, and he was coming from the AI world, he looked at it and he said, an AI could do this. And when he said that, I just it was such an interesting and fresh perspective, and it seems simple in hindsight, but it really changed the way I looked at the industry. And so it brought me right back. So then can we apply big data, exponential technologies, and combine all of the different disciplines, data points, logics into a kind of AI developer type of software?
And that's where DeepBlocks was born?
Yes, exactly. That
Okay.
moment.
So how has that been for you? I mean, you've done a lot of work, like you said, working with big data, software. You come from a background that is real estate development. How has it been for you as a female kind of moving into this space and most importantly, becoming the founder of an AI company?
Yeah. So something that I realized early on, that, expertise in the domain was necessary to drive the design of the software. We understanding how architecture and development meets, how construction and finance meets was crucial to the product that we were building, which would be kind of an all-encompassing software. And also that as long as you know what it should do, coding it was a secondary type of endeavor. So I could have a team do that. And AI became a similar thing. Like really the power behind artificial intelligence is the domain expertise of the data and the rigor of understanding the meaning behind the data, and therefore the meaning you're trying to achieve on the other side of the model. And so before it was like very kind of, you know, I was in the dark about these technologies, but little by little I understood that the power came from the intention of what you want to build with them and the expertise of what you want to impact with it.
It's interesting because one of the themes that I'm seeing with all of the female CEOs that have been interviewed as part of the summit is that piece of, I guess like courage is what comes to mind, right? But every single one of you has had this courage to kind of jump into a space, not completely knowing how it's going to work, not completely understanding like that back end of it, but really having this vision and the understanding of the bigger picture. And I think that that's something that's really been like a common characteristic is just, this discussion of recognizing nobody was like an AI expert that decided to build an AI tool or an AI solution, but every single one of our speakers was either someone who was looking for a solution, someone who could see a bigger picture or the potential of what AI can do and decided to jump in, even though, like you said, maybe they were learning along the way or they didn't completely understand it at first. And I think that's so empowering because I think a lot of our summit participants are women who maybe are, and it's all spectrums, right? So maybe they're just starting to use tools like ChatGPT, maybe they've been dabbling. But I think that's important to recognize because I think there's a lot of imposter syndrome for people who are using AI, right? And, just thinking like, who am I? I'm not an expert. I don't have a tech background. I don't know coding. I don't know anything about machine learning. But part of the magic, right, and part of the innovation is just holding on to that big picture, right? And I guess that bigger question of like, what if this could be? And in running with that vision and not letting those things kind of hold you back.
Yes. And also I would say along the way, learning as much as possible. So at this point now I can code. Now I understand kind of the the way you build software and like the more abstract decision making on building software and training AI models. So it's not it's the vision, but also the curiosity and the interest in learning how these things are built so that you better communicate with the engineers that are and data scientists that are making it happen.
So what about deep blocks is transformative for the real estate industry and for its users? How does the platform work? I'd love it if you could maybe share a little bit or show us what it can do.
Okay. Yes. Let me log in. While I do that, so deep blocks, the we're focused on the investment side. So really understanding a city and understanding um, where the opportunities are for development and acquisition. And um, when we first started, we didn't understand that a lot of the data required would be, let me just go to Miami. A lot of the data was not digitized yet. So we actually had to start by digitizing all of the zoning data to then be able to have the type of functionalities that would get us to where we want to be. So I'm going to share with you. It's going to take 2 minutes to show you. This is the most powerful part, which is you have on the screen 2,600 parcels. And then you're able to say, where can I build between 50 and 100 units? Okay. And now we're down from, what was it, like 2,000 parcels to 82. And now, give me the buildings where the structure area is less than, let's say, 5,000 square feet. So now we're down to 5 parcels. So we went from a couple of thousand to 5 parcels that meet that requirement. And once we select the parcel, we give you what it can build exactly. And
Wow.
then we could do, and I'll end with this, there are about 50 different data layers where you can look at sea level, but then you could create a 3D model that gives you not just the visual, but here on the right, a back of the envelope return on cost calculation. So you can understand how the building fits in the city, but also how it fits financially, how much it's going to cost, what's your unit mix, what are the parking requirements. And so in a 2-minute demo, we can do a feasibility and a site selection that would take months and then weeks to figure out. So I'll stop sharing here.
Wow, that I don't know much about real estate development, but I can definitely see the power and the amount of time that this would save a developer in terms of research and gathering data and right? Because prior to this tool, I would imagine, and I don't know, like I said, because I'm not in real estate development, I would imagine a lot of this was done manually. It was all about data collection. It was about, right? Like just
It's still done manually. And even if you have the zoning data, you still have to do the math to figure out how it's applied to each parcel. So we do that automatically. So you can ask questions in a very broad sense across the city.
so what does a tool like this, right? How much time would it save someone who's in the industry? And is there any data potentially that this tool provides that maybe offers different perspectives or maybe fills some gaps that a developer might have prior to using this tool?
Yes. So when you look at a new market, unless you have boots on the ground, you don't know what's possible. So, and canvassing a new market can take many months of work. And sometimes it takes driving around and seeing what has yet been developed, or going through Google Maps. So this in a second, you can say, where are the empty lots or the lots that are underutilized and what can I build exactly? So as you saw, it was 2,000 parcels and I narrowed down to 5 that would meet a very specific development criteria. So that's 6 to 8 months of work in a couple of seconds. And then the generation of, how tall should it be? How many units? What's the size of the units? The cost of the units? How much can I pay for it in construction? That is a couple of weeks as well with financial analysts, contractors, architects. And this could be done in a very preliminary way. We're not replacing those disciplines, but we are allowing the developer to very quickly understand what's possible.
So, I have a question in terms of development, right? I live in Southern California. There's lots of development that's happening here in Southern California. And I know in terms of like community isn't always really excited about things that are being developed, right? So there's a hesitation or there's some kind of resistance. But I also see the potential of what you're offering and helping developers recognize like where the gaps are, right? So potentially, sure, there's developers that are out there and they just want to put buildings up and it's all about revenue. But I also imagine that there's an aspect of when we look at development of asking like, what does the community need? And you said something when you were sharing your software. You said, like, I think you said something along the lines of like, how does this fit within the community,
Yes.
right? So can you share a little bit about that aspect? Like that aspect of not this isn't just a tool so people can go and build sky rises and make lots of money. There is an aspect that now they can tap into around the actual needs of a certain community.
Yes. So we have a parallel product that's AI based. It's called ChatDB that looks at all the trends, economic and demographic trends by zip code, by census tract, and by city. And that's what goes before looking at the sites, right? To understand what areas of the city are quick and growing, and therefore there's going to be a demand for it. What areas of the city are shifting, and those are the opportunities because if a developer, if they put something somewhere where there's no demand, it's not going to get absorbed. So they're going to lose money. So they're interested in putting the product in the right time, in the right place. And so we're building that aspect as well in a second product that's also available to brokers and agents to better understand and visualize the markets that they're working in.
I love that. Like, I love that community aspect of, recognizing that, like, right? How do we build something that's actually going to serve the community? And, y- not just, again, like here, and I'm using an example, we had like an old mall that was torn down, and they're going to put this giant skyrise and buildings and this shopping center, and the community is upset because it's changing our shoreline, it's blocking people's views, right? But I really like that aspect of you being able to empower them to take a look at the data and ask the question, what can we build that will actually serve the community, that will serve the people in the community? And I think that's a really fresh perspective that we don't always see or hear about when we hear about things being developed, is that there's this true opportunity to serve, right? Because I think people on the outside of the industry really look in terms of things like, well, it's all about money, right? They just want to. So I love that you.
But I think also like the community being more engaged in their own benefit in terms of like, for example, the additional units rules. In Southern California, the new laws on ADUs and affordable housing are really interesting for the community to be engaged and benefit economically from, right? Because now you have a home where you can build four additional homes for more income. So the community should also see how these projects and these rules can help benefit, their well-being. And I think, it's more of a collaboration between the city developers and community members to make sure that everyone is flourishing economically.
Mhm. I love that. Now, you mentioned something about asking questions, right? When we talked about people who are diving in, maybe they want to leverage AI, maybe they know that there's potential in using AI for, certain tasks, and them not having a clear background around AI or technology and things like that. And you mentioned how for you in your own journey, right, you paid attention, you asked the right questions, and now you've obviously up-leveled your skill when it comes to coding and things like that because you raised your hand, asked the questions, and were willing to learn. I think, though, that there's a lot of hesitation for, women, especially in a male-dominated industry, to kind of raise their hands and admit, "I don't know what that means. I don't know how to do this." What advice can you give to that when there's that resistance or that hesitation to ask the questions, to be curious, to admit that you don't know something so that you can actually learn and kind of widen your knowledge?
Yeah, I think that was really hard to do at first. But I realized, well, as a CEO, I can demand to know whatever I want, right? So then every CTO that I had, every engineer that was in my team, I was like, I need to understand this, And so I demanded time to, of course, in a very respectful and nice way. And they really appreciate it actually, because then when I bring the next phase of the vision, I understand how difficult it is to build. And I understand the complexities and the technical debt and all the things that are required. And I can work within those limits rather than be irrational or like, unreasonable with what is expected. But I think asking questions, if somebody doesn't want to answer, you learn a lot about that person. Right. And so I don't think you should be afraid of asking questions. They'll teach you more about who you want to work with and who you want to be next to. And if you're not in a position to ask questions, then pay close attention to what is said and then go home and research those terms and then come back a new person the next day and be able to engage more and more every day. So you really want to have the desire to be part of the conversation in one way or another.
And what do you think are the implications? And thank you for that, right? And I think the key word here is desire. And I feel like there's a lot of people that are using AI tools. They are using them because they feel like they're trendy or because someone else is using them, right? But I think the desire is the key here. Do you, do you think there are implications that we're going to see with the people who are using these AI tools and actually don't have the desire to understand how they work or what's going on behind the scenes?
Um, it depends, So there's a group of people that will build the next layer of AI tools. For example, in our case, we imagine the products that we're building, they're used now by human beings, but we're designing AI to use our products. So
Mm.
the end user doesn't have to toggle, doesn't have to push buttons. They can literally ask a question and get the visual and get the results, right? There are people who are going to benefit from having that result more than they are going to benefit from building the software that generates the results. So it really depends on what side of the business you're on. I don't think everyone's going to be making AI software, but I do think everyone's going to be using AI software. I don't think there's going to be a single software in 10 years that's not going to have an AI component.
Okay. And so when it comes to females getting involved, right? Like this is the Women Who AI Summit. We have right around 1,000 members, mostly female, who are raising their hand to say, I want to be part of the community. I want to learn and be empowered by other females who are in the space. What kind of role do you think females play in the world of AI and the evolution of AI? And why do you think it's important that females, have that voice and take that role?
I think it's important that we are part of every role in every industry. I think one of the most successful mechanisms is nature, and nature requires both male and female to collaborate aspect of it. And I think that we need to take that very seriously in business and in community and in what we build. And so, and I don't know, what's worked for me is not see myself as a female entrepreneur, just see myself as an entrepreneur. And if there's anything that blocks me because I am a female founder, then let that be the problem of the person who's blocking me, not mine. And I just continue to try to figure out where do I fit and where can I grow. And I think that has worked for me. And I try not to pay attention to those boundaries, rather where the opportunities are.
I really like that perspective, right? Of just recognizing that we have a role to play, we have things to do, like you said, desires, curiosities. And if we feel blocked like that, it's not on us, right? It's on the person on the other side. And I think that's just a great mindset shift, right, for our community to hear is, it's not an issue that's ours. Like we should just keep surging forward. It's somebody else's issue if that's what we're running into. So thank you for that. I know you've graciously offered our community a chance to test out
Mm.
um the software. And, I would love to ask, right? We have a lot of people that are in the real estate space, and we also have a lot of viewers on here that maybe are not in the real estate space. So for people who might want to dive in and they might want to play around with deep blocks and take advantage of that offer, for someone who maybe isn't in the real estate space, can you offer some insight on maybe what they might find interesting in just going through and kind of testing out deep blocks?
Yes. So we have three different products that are really interesting depending on kind of your range of interest. One is the AI kind of market understanding. I think that's more of a general tool where people can see in my zip code, how much population has grown over the last 10 years. So it's kind of looking at your city and understanding about 8 different parameters that are really interesting. And then if you're an agent, a realtor, we also have a zoning report where you can click on any property and it gives you the breakdown and what you can build. That might be interesting for a homeowner. Also, if they want to see if they could do additional units. And then we have, the core product, which is super interesting as well, but that's more for more advanced brokers and agents doing commercial deals or aspiring to do commercial deals. And if they get in touch with us and mention the show, we'll give them a big discount, or we'll do a month for free so they can try it out, depending on the length of commitment that they want to use it for.
Amazing. Well, I have about 10 people who I know are part of this summit who are watching these sessions who are going to go crazy over this session and probably definitely will be reaching out to you. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your time and your insight and just sharing a little bit about your journey. We're really happy to have you be a part of our summit.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you for having me.
Yes. And thank you, everybody, for joining in this session. If you are dying over the potential of this tool, I'm talking to you and I'm thinking about you. So make sure that you not only take advantage of the free trial of Deep Blocks, but make sure we get you in touch with Olivia so that you can dive in and start utilizing such an amazing AI platform within your business. So thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll see you inside the next session.